Our next guest speaker is going to be an entertainment leader, a visionary, and a media executive, Mr. Larry Namer, and he is one of the founders of Entertainment. I am so excited to have you here with us today on Regardless, and even more thrilled to share with you all that Larry Namer has over 40 years of experience in the industry. He is an expert in all things television, film, digital media, and now podcasting. And I'm also excited to share that I have the honor of working with Mr. Larry Namer on one of his upcoming projects and podcasts, Stall Talk, which is about what women talk about when they go to the bathroom. Larry Namer, welcome to Regardless. I am very excited to just dig deeper into your world today.
Wait, well, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here, and it's fun to be working together on Stall Talk.
I am super excited for that. And it's just a really cool experience for me to get to know you more and the fact that we get to share just this space together today. So to start things off, Larry, what is it like for you to uphold such a distinguished name in the industry? Like, what does it take to maintain that sort of title and ongoing responsibility?
Well, first of all, I hate to say this, but I'm now at 50 years in the business, literally since I was a baby. People find it weird when I say this, but I don't really take it very seriously. And particularly with E, which is, probably the thing I've done that most people know. I've done a lot of other stuff, but, people know E, and, the company went, literally, Alan and I started the company from nothing. I mean, it's still the only major TV network that's ever been started by people as opposed to companies, which is pretty amazing. It's now in 142 countries and worth over 5-point-something billion and stuff like that. But, when people ask me, about that whole thing and the notoriety, people have a vision of me, of what I'm supposed to be, which is really very different than what I am. I don't take it seriously. I go, okay, I figured out people around the world love Hollywood gossip. To me, that wasn't rocket science. I mean, we executed it really well, but it was kind of that attitude of Hollywood is funny stuff, don't take it very seriously, that kind of let E become what it became, particularly originally. The early E was all my sensibility, which is Hollywood is funny stuff, don't try and make believe it's rocket science.
I love that. And I think one of my values in life is don't take yourself too seriously. And I think that's what I really appreciate about you. And I mean, when you're out, I guess, operating and navigating the world, like, do you feel this sense of like having to like prove yourself, or did you ever feel that throughout your career, maybe like more in the early stages?
I wouldn't say that I felt like I had to prove myself.
Yeah.
Because while it took us 3.5 years to raise the first 10 cents for the network, once it went on the air, everybody went, "Oh my God, you should have told us that's what you want to do. We would have given you money 3 years ago." So it was an overnight success that took 3.5 years to be an overnight success. But, people say, when did you know it was going to be successful? And the answer is from the first day we had the idea. We just knew what it was going to be. We didn't think it would grow that big and that fast. Yeah. I mean, I think in our first year, we were in 14 new countries and stuff, which was kind of unheard of. And
crazy.
But you know what? The path to success was so quick. And it was so intense that we really didn't have time to stop and reflect on it. We just kind of did it.
Wow. Curious, how did you know it was going to be successful? Like, were there certain, like was there feedback that you were getting, or was it just this, like what does that look like to you?
Well, a lot of it really had to do with our ability to relate to, celebrities and directors and stuff, because while a lot of people a lot of TV shows were taking the attitude of let's uncover the gossip and ruin people's lives and stuff.
Yep.
We were celebrating the industry. We just love the entertainment industry, and we were going to celebrate everything about it and stuff. So, and for a lot of people, we gave them the opportunity to do stuff and say stuff they normally don't get. With Entertainment Tonight, they lucky to get a 20-second soundbite. We would actually go on a film and follow the director for an hour. And people would actually get to see stuff that they never saw before, and so it was very different and very unusual, and it was kind of that irreverent attitude that really made it pop out. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, so we had to be very creative.
Very cool. I feel like you found the gap, and you really, were able to shine in that area. So super, super cool stuff. And I would love to get deeper into more of like your growth experience, right, throughout creating this business from the ground up. And so thinking about your experience as an entrepreneur, because I am one myself, and I'm sure a lot of the women out there who are listening to this podcast look up to you. And we want to understand, like, how did you do it? And realistically, like, what did that experience look like? So I'm curious, Larry, like, can you recall a time building E where you maybe doubted yourself and you were like, I'm not sure if this is going to work? And here at Regardless, we're all about, regardless of self-doubt, limiting beliefs, fear, how do we move forward, push through, and rise to the top regardless of those things? So if you can recall, like, one of the biggest hurdles in your career and share how you overcame that, I would love to hear your Regardless story.
Sure. I think it was, that first thing of raising money. Alan and I wrote the business plan. And, at that time, starting a TV network cost somewhere between $60 and $100 million. But we soon, well, not soon enough, but we realized that nobody was giving us that kind of money. And then sometimes you just got to be lucky and be in the right place at the right time. So we were actually on a plane. We snuck into first class. We sat.
How did you sneak into first class?
We just kind of walked up and sat down.
Love it.
We eventually got moved, but we were talking about the business plan because we had a meeting in New York, and the guy next to us said, "Oh, what's that?" And we told him. He said, "That's really great. When are you doing it?" And we said, well, we're not, because nobody's giving us any money. He goes, oh, you got to go see this friend of mine. He's just took over investment banking for what used to be a bond house on Wall Street. And he would probably love this. And we were like, yeah, okay, another one. After 3.5 years, you get kind of beaten down a little.
Yeah.
I think I was down to like 60 some odd dollars in the bank or something like that. And so anyway, we went and saw this guy whose name was Jeffrey Pollack, and young guy, and he was like, oh, I really love this. I used to be the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper. And, we were like, yeah. So he said, I want to do it. And we said, could you give us more like the 100 million than the 60? And he goes, oh, no, I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5, actually. And Alan and I just said, you know what, we'll take the 2.5 and we'll figure it out. So we started E with literally $2.5 million. And we had 11 employees and 31 interns from University of Texas in Austin. And but it was like one of those things. As soon as we went on the air, it was like everybody's like, oh, why don't you tell us? If we knew you wanted to do that, we would have given you money years ago, which was not true. But it was that. But it was like dealing with celebrities as people that really changed it, because it wasn't just about their next project. It's like, who are you? And we changed a lot of the way celebrity reporting got done. So,
Larry, amazing. It also is super cool for me because, being in my 20s right now, I always tell myself, like, this is the brokest I will ever be. And it is like such an important reminder, I think, especially for those listening out there who are entrepreneurs, like, get down your idea, figure out everything in between the idea, have a number, because you never know when you're out there navigating the world who you're going to meet. Like, you meeting this random guy on the plane, like, if you didn't have a pitch ready and you didn't have everything in motion already, you wouldn't have made this happen or this connection, bring this opportunity to you.
Yeah, no, you have to do that. And
Yep.
a lot of times in my life, I've had that. And but I'm of the belief is it's not just luck. It's this instinctive thing that you develop more and more over time, which tells you where to be and when, and and make those random things not so random.
Okay, can you talk a little bit more about that? How do you know when and where to be? Is it like a gut, a muscle that you build? Like, share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and a lot of people hate when I say this, is a lot of stuff was gut. We didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
We did, so it wasn't like we could do market research. So a lot of stuff that we did was really based on just gut feel, and quite honestly, a lot of it was just copying MTV. We said they have a lot of money. They were a big, Viacom company. So
Yeah.
we just said they must have researched the hell out of this theory. So it must be good. We'll just copy it and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a lot of gut feel, particularly when you're doing something new. When you could, if I go to a TV network and say I want to do a crime drama, they kind of get it and they know what a crime drama is, but when you come up with new ideas, you say to people, just imagine. That's it. You've lost them because most people cannot imagine the picture that you have in your head. So I just learned that if you feel it, just go for it.
And step into that and say, this is what I'm doing versus imagine. So setting it up as,
Yeah, I mean, just think about, some of the early shows that we were successful or I was successful. When I went and told our team, I said, I want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows. They were like, what?
yeah.
They go, that's like crazy. They said, nobody will ever go for it. But that was Talk Soup, and as crazy as that idea was, it ran 26 years. And pretty much is been the blueprint for everything that's followed in, the celebrity culture reporting there. I mean, Talk Soup was kind of revolutionary. And then, and then when we met this tall, lanky radio guy in the elevator in New York, I went back and told him, said, I want to put cameras in this guy's radio studio. And they were like, Larry, Talk Soup was a crazy idea, but radio's been dead for 40 years. Why would you do that? And, I just said, you don't really, this is like a sitcom. This is an ensemble cast. This is not a radio show, it's a comedy. And, Howard Stern went on to do pretty well. And he helped get it. While he did have a good career back in New York, this gave him national exposure.
Wow. So Larry, it's no secret that this industry is hyper competitive and people do say that it's cutthroat. So knowing that people travel all over the world to make it to Hollywood and really they will make sacrifices, unethical and unethical, to rise to the top. Looking back at like younger Larry, how did you stay true to yourself and maintain boundaries and your values in an industry that challenges those things?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's upbringing. Parents come from immigrant stock, and they weren't. Yeah, although it may sound a little harsh these days, if you talk back to, a woman, I got my mouth washed out with soap. Literally, they would put a bar of Dove soap in my mouth, and they were just very strict and very much into being a good person. And I kind of took that with me. And I think one of the things that really kind of helped me was people began to realize that I wasn't going to be cutthroat and I wasn't going to ever betray my friends in order to be successful and stuff like that. So I developed this level of trust, and then particularly with talent, with celebrities. They knew that when I said I was going to do something, I actually did it. And I always made a point of like, if I said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, even if it hurts or if it costs me money or whatever. And that's kind of followed me throughout the years and allowed me access into a lot of places and allowed me to get things done that a lot of people just thought were never going to get done. I mean, look, I was the only Westerner that had a media company in the Soviet Union and Russia. I had the number one TV show in Russia for 10 years.
Which one?
It was a soap opera, but we don't talk much
Okay,
about
we
it.
won't talk about it.
No, but 5 days a week for 10 years. It was the number one TV show there. And it was such a dramatic effect on Russian culture and Russian people. And I mean, even to this day, people like Russians are like, I'm kind of a god there now. And then being the only company in China. And the reason was because the Chinese folks, when I told them what I wanted to do and what I wouldn't do, they said, this guy has a history of like doing what he says and being true and honest and stuff. And we're still, I think, the only Western company that's allowed to operate in the media sphere in China.
Wow. So thinking, I mean, I know you shared more about how you approach the world, and it seems like trust, being authentic, having integrity and showing up that way in the industry is obviously important to you and has led to your growth and success as a leader. What are qualities that you look for in other people in the industry? Like growing up, my dad has always been like, especially when it comes to guys, he's been like, Sky, do not trust a guy for 3 years. I'm like, bro, like, how am I supposed to date? But it is true, because looking at, especially in business and thinking about bringing people on for projects or even partnering with someone, like, how do you build that trust with someone, or like know that you maybe can or cannot?
Well, I think, I mean, from my point of view, it's just always doing what you say and delivering and stuff. And I've always been very much that to the point where I'm going to drag people along to my success. So, I mean, you look at I forget, when we finally cashed out of there, I think we had 17 folks became millionaires from that show. Because the people that were there at the beginning, I wanted to make sure they were taken care of really, really well. And that's kind of the way I approach everything, is that basically it's a sharing kind of thing. And that if it's going to be successful, I want everybody around me to feel like they were treated very fairly and stuff. And literally that's been the way it's been for my whole life and stuff. And that's why I have a lot of people that stick with me for a long time that are incredibly loyal and stuff like that. But, in hiring, I just hired the smartest people I could find. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. So if I'm going to hire an editor for something, they better know how to edit a heck of a lot better than I do. I don't want someone who's going to just tell me what they think I want to hear. I want people that are, not confrontational, but, if they really believe that something should be one way as opposed to the way I said it should be, that are going to challenge that and stuff. Otherwise, what's the point of having, folks around? But our corporate environment has always been kind of interesting. And, I know you'll appreciate this. Heavily women. Because I get along well with women. And then what happened, because we created this environment that women who came in were very comfortable with it, and they didn't feel like they were being treated as a woman, but they were treated as a professional. What happens, and again, totally, this is not conscious, but then they tell their friends. So when a job opens, the first people that would come in for interviews would be the friends of the women who work there. And I think now, to this day, we're probably 80% women in C-suite. And stuff, because it's just a good environment. People like being in that environment, and they feel they're being rewarded well and, fairly so.
It's sad that that isn't more of like a norm. So it's fantastic to hear that. And even just hearing everything that you are sharing about, supporting women and empowering them. And also when you believe in someone, you bring them with you along with your success. Like that is so cool and refreshing for me to hear as a young professional in corporate America and also being an entrepreneur. So thank you for sharing that. And I know this about you, Larry. You are exceptionally good at reading people. And I think sometimes it's true.
It is true. Yeah.
It's so true. And I think sometimes people are really born with it, or they just don't have it. and you are exceptional at this. And I want to understand more for my women listening here who are in their early stages of their career. And this is something I just am really interested in learning more about you. How do you distinguish whether or not someone is genuine in getting to know you or just trying to get something from you?
Well, there's a few parts to that answer. First of all, I grew up in I learned in later life, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood.
Where in New York?
I grew up in Coney Island, New York, which
Yeah.
is still the hood. It's not gentrified Brooklyn, it's old Brooklyn.
Wow.
And, it was a diverse community.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was like majority was actually Puerto Rican, and then African American, and then us white kids were in the minority. But we kind of all got along. I mean, we all played in the streets and stuff like that. So I grew up as a street kid. I mean, literally in the morning, I would leave the house at 7:30 in the summer and come back at 8 o'clock at night.
So you really know the streets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you learn a lot from
Yeah.
from that experience and stuff. And but in Hollywood, I gotta say, so yes, I think I am good at reading people. And in Hollywood, I kind of have this other attitude, which is, that saying, you're innocent until proven guilty. In
Yes, I know
Hollywood, it's
that
the opposite.
very
You're
well.
guilty until proven innocent. I just don't believe 90% of what I hear from people. Everybody, if I say I've got a movie I'm doing, they could tell me they got 10 movies they're doing and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of fake and phoniness that happens in this town. And when I say this town, I mean this industry, not just physically Hollywood. So I kind of start there. And if somebody's not willing to go through the motions of showing me that they're honest and genuine and they fit into the culture that we create, because we don't want people that are fighting and stuff like that. We kind of look at ourselves as a happy place, and we want to keep it that way.
What's your your definition of someone being genuine? Like, what does that look like to you?
Well, number one, I think it's somebody that'll actually, and it's funny because it's not just in business, but it's also in relationships
Yeah.
and dating and all that stuff. Is if I tell you my problems, I want you to tell me the truth, and that's kind of it. Not being afraid of, if you really believe it. Now, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what you really believe. And also just knowing you got my back and that, I could go to sleep at night and not worry that you're going to stab me in my sleep and that kind of stuff.
Thank you for that. It was really interesting. You said something about Hollywood not being a place. And I remember seeing one of your interviews, and I know it doesn't really matter, like regardless of where you are in the map, you can really embody Hollywood. Share a little bit more with me,
I think,
what you mean by that.
over time, there was a time where if you wanted to make movies and television, you had to come to
Yep.
Hollywood. So it was a physical place. The studios were here. The cost of making movies and the equipment and the backlots and all of that stuff was incredibly high. So it was all very concentrated. Everybody around the world wanted to come to Hollywood. But I think over time, technology has changed that. I mean, I could take my cell phone and go to Nairobi and make a movie on my cell phone if I want. So Hollywood, I think it really is not so much a geographical place, but it's a concept. I think it's a measure of quality, a measure of creativity and stuff, but could be practiced anywhere in the world. I mean, you don't have to physically be here. I mean, if you just look at the movie business, when I got involved in the movie business, it box office was 95% US and 5% was the rest of the world. Now the US is only 30%. And so it used to be where we would make Hollywood movies in English and then people would dub them in German or French or whatever. But now they make movies in Germany and France and they make them in native language. Look at China. I mean, China has now risen to be the #1 box office country in the world. Which is interesting because when I got involved there like 12 years ago, and I would go to the studios and say, listen, I have a show in China called Hello Hollywood, and I want to have my host on the red carpet. they would deny it and say, Larry, we don't really care about China, go away. And I would just say, guys, you got to understand, while they may be little today, they ain't going to be little for
Yeah.
long. And now, they beg for us to cover China because it literally is the number one box office country in the world.
Super interesting. I think it's like this mindset that regardless of, looking at Hollywood and in anything in life, it's like you can really, when you think about something and you want to embody it, you have the power to change your mindset and to step into that at any point, whether it is, a Hollywood vibe or main character energy. You do have the power to step into that and claim that. So thank you for sharing. And I think I want to tailor this back more towards, again, looking at star power and how you are able to identify that. And are there any specific traits that you look for when determining on whether or not you want to invest your time and energy into someone, whether it is young talent or someone who is hungry, driven, and you see potential in?
Sure. That's interesting because, you could look at, if you go back to the early E days, people always say to me, you were so lucky you had all those great hosts. At the beginning, we had Greg Kinnear and Julie Moran went on to do Wide World of Sports. Katie Wagner went on to do Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Richard Blade, K-Rock, and stuff like that. But it didn't happen by accident. We realized that with limited amount of money, that one of the only things we can control is the choice of the host. So we interviewed, I think, almost 10,000 people. We were looking for the first 5 hosts.
Were you interviewing them? Was it just you two?
No. Actually, this woman, Eileen Graham, had the task of doing it. But we ended up, I think, putting 7,200 people on tape. And, I met this young guy who was he was an assistant marketing person at some little monster movie company and kept telling me he could be a host. And I was like, yeah. But he went in and, I said, here, go see Eileen next Tuesday. And I told Eileen, this guy's coming in and, I don't care if you even have tape in the camera. I'm trying to sell advertising to his company. And, she came in and said, hey, that guy's downstairs. He wants to say hello. I said, Eileen, I'm really busy. I don't have time. And then she came back 10 minutes later and she says, well, he's really insisting. I said, well, Eileen, I'm trying to figure out how I pay you on Friday. Yeah. So get out of here. And then she took him in the studio and then came back in and said, Larry, come in the studio. And I'm going, Eileen, what was it about, get out of here that you didn't understand? Literally took me by the ear. And dragged me into the studio, and she cued the guy whose name just happened to be Greg Kinnear, like Academy Award Greg Kinnear.
Wow.
And, I just looked at it and went, holy shit. He just lit the camera up. So, in that kind of thing, there is this camera presence that you look for. But, if you go to later day stuff, everybody always comes to me and they go, I want to be a TV host. Yeah, okay, everybody's going to be the next Oprah. But people don't realize what really goes into it. I mean, having talent and personality are part of it, but the other is really having the work ethic and the desire, that fire in your belly to want to be it. And people constantly, telling me they want to be it. And I said, okay, do you understand that if we get your daytime, talk show, you're going to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to go into hair and makeup, and 5 o'clock you're going to, start shooting. You're going to wrap up at 11, and then you're going to go home, have lunch, go to sleep, and you're going to do it 50 weeks a year. And people go, oh, no, I can't do that. I like to spend the summer in the Hamptons or Ibiza and, stuff like that. So even with the talent and the look and stuff, they're there. And when I say look, it's not always beauty. There's just a look. That that's interesting. That when I look at someone, I want to know more about them. I want to get more involved. But I was on some Hollywood party on a rooftop, and this British gal approached me, and was telling me she wanted to be the next Oprah, and I'm like, yeah, okay. But then she just pursued me for like 3 months. And to the point where I could be in China and call her like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she'd stay on the phone for 2 hours with me. So we're doing this show with her called Natasha After Dark, and because she had it. I mean, this was the level of focus. I mean, she's good, she's talented, and she's not, a Hollywood beauty by those standards and stuff, but she's jiggly and sexy and stuff. A single mom,
Phenomenal.
and but she just knew what she wanted, and she not only had the talent, she had the look, but she had the drive and the desire.
The drive is so important. It's almost like I'm going to make it happen regardless of what gets in my way.
Yeah, it's got to be the most important thing
Yep.
in your life. And if it's not, it's probably not what you should be
Yeah.
doing anyway.
I feel that to a T. I mean, even for me, like this experience with you, Larry, like I wake up thinking about it. I brush my teeth thinking about it. Like I go to bed thinking about it. And it's one of those things that you cannot teach anyone. And I think the same with having stage presence or presence on camera or how you walk into the room and you make other people feel. It's something that can't necessarily be taught. Do you think the process of you realizing if someone really has it, like how long does that process look like? Is there a certain timeline that you look out for?
No, a lot of it is gut.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you start with the look. I mean, the look is first, is this person going to be the right look on camera, and can we attract a wide enough audience? But you look at other stuff. I mean, a good example on Stall Talk, you know Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because even today, when I take Rachel to a meeting, people, more women than men, interestingly enough, treat her like she's my assistant as opposed to the head of dev. Rachel started as an intern. And then she had like a kind of minor job, and now she's the queen of development over at LJN Media and stuff. And, it's hard, particularly for a young woman, to get that credibility, and people realize that I think the exposure to me has been good for Rachel, because I give her I let her make her own mistakes. I mean, I kind of think of myself as the bodyguard. Like I'll let her
I love that.
I'll let her shoot herself in the foot, but if she's going to shoot herself in the head, I'll step in.
Yeah.
But sometimes your best lessons are through mistakes and stuff. And as long as they're not fatal, it's just part of the growing process and stuff like that. And I think just her being around me for a while has kind of rubbed off a bit on her. So
Shout out to Rachel. She's incredible and so cool to see your journey with her and really having faith and trust in her to be successful and kill it. And she has, and she will. And it's an honor to be a part of that journey with you too.
yeah, and again, it's not just having the brain power, but it's having the work ethic.
Absolutely.
And stuff. And you could spot that in people pretty early on, actually.
I agree. And I love what you just said about just Rachel maybe not being taken seriously by, strangers or potential clients on the phone. And this is perfect because this is something that has followed also me and so many other women navigating our career in our early 20s. And so as a man, Larry, of power, of influence, what sort of advice would you have for the women listening who are in the early stages of their career, but want to be taken seriously in their respective fields?
Well, I mean, you have to be serious. I think, as a woman, you got to be as good, if not better, than the people at your level there, because people are going to think lesser of you. That's the way it is. But I think you also got to look at the environment you put yourself in, and you got to put yourself with supervisors or bosses or whatever you want to call them that are going to have your back. I mean, even with Rachel is a good example. I've had people say, "Oh no, I'm not going to deal with Rachel. She's whatever," and I just cut the deal off. I just say, "That's it. You're not going to deal with Rachel.
Wow.
You're not going to deal with the company." So, and that word gets around when people know that if you're going to pick on the girl, you're not going anywhere with me.
Yep.
That really helps, finding an environment that's going to be nurturing and stuff. And again, it's not a matter of women or men. It's the people that I hire the people that work for me. I really respect them and I want to see them do good. And I'm not going to stand for anybody disrespecting them, man or woman.
I appreciate you for saying that. And it is so true. I think it's about finding a right culture fit, regardless of gender, age. It's about being with the right people who respect you. I don't think it's about, I'm a woman, like, hear me roar. I mean, that's great, but it's just respect.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that we're still living in a world where there really sometimes aren't those things. So, Larry, the fact that you just shared that experience with Rachel and you say goodbye to the haters, like, we don't need it. So, very, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, this is a question that I'm super excited to hear from you.
Uh-oh.
Who are some of the most successful women you admire and why?
Oh, well, I think if you gotta pick, if I have to pick one, there was the first woman ever to run a major network, Kay Koplovitz, started USA Network and Sci-Fi Channel and stuff like that. And you ever want to talk about poor woman in a male-dominated society? It was all guys. But Kay was just amazing, and later we still stay in touch. Although she now runs a big incubator that puts money into women-related business. She runs about $2 billion in women causes and women companies and entrepreneurship and stuff. It's called Springboard.
Okay.
And if I had to pick the one woman that I'm amazed at how she managed to get through it would be Kay for sure.
Super cool. And where is she based? Is she in LA?
She's in New York,
Okay,
and stuff, but she's all over the world, and but it's great because she's not just this fabulous businesswoman who's managed to make her way through a male-dominated society, but she's married and family, and
so she's doing it all.
she's doing it all. Yeah, so you got to respect that because
Oh, yeah.
you got to realize that it's probably harder than the journey that I went through.
I mean, like, even for me now, Larry, I have girlfriends who are like 27 and they're like, when I'm 29, like, I want to have kids. And, I'm about to be 27, but even having those conversations and being around that, it's stressful because when you're a girl or a woman who cares so deeply about her career and also being a mom, it is scary to think about, like, when is all this going to happen? And am I going to have time for all of this? But to have women to look up to who've done it all, like, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, women, kind of have this time clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go, well, if I don't have the kids by this age and, stuff like that. And guys don't have that. So we do get the benefit of that. But 27, you're still okay.
Thank you, Larry. I needed that today. So, Larry, if you were able to go back to your 20-something self, let's say 27, my age, what is one piece of advice that you would want to share with him?
Interesting for me because I've had this kind of crazy career. At 27, I was in Manhattan and I was, oddly enough, the head of corporate development at Time Inc. For cable.
27 years old.
Yeah, I've had like several hundred people reporting to me and all of that kind of stuff. I very quickly got out of the follow your passion kind of thing. Oh, my passion has always been cooking, not television. But you realize that there are necessities of life, not just for you, but for everybody that works for you. And you got to be very conscious of making sure that you're dealing with those necessities. Like, yeah, you could underpay people and stuff like that, but if they're trying to figure out how to pay the rent and stuff, and their mind's going to be on a lot of other things, they're not going to be the greatest employees you've ever had. So, I worked for this guy named Nick Nicholas, who was the president of Manhattan Cable, who later became the president of Time Warner, and he was really tough. But the one thing that he always instilled in me, he goes, Larry, you could be firm but fair. And firm but fair has kind of been my mantra all along and stuff. And that's why it's funny because when I have this company in China and my partner in China, who's a woman, Chinese woman named Jean, And, I'll go there and go, hey, Gene, Ellie's pregnant and we only pay her $1,500 a month. Shouldn't we give her more money? And I've just learned to just put myself aside and let Gene run the company and stuff. And even with COVID, we've actually increased headcount and profitability there and stuff like that. You're dealing in different cultures, so you got to realize you can't just go in and apply your culture to theirs. It doesn't work.
What do you mean by firm but fair? Like, give us an example.
You could expect a lot for people. But then you got to make sure they're rewarded well, and reward doesn't necessarily just come by money. It comes by recognition. It comes from respect and stuff like that. So you got to make sure you provide all those components so that person. And Nick Nicholas did it to me, where sometimes I'll be working 14, 15-hour days, and so. But I always felt like I was being treated fairly. Like when I did a lot of good stuff, all of a sudden out of nowhere, they'd say, oh, Larry, we really love what you did, for the last 6 months. By the way, look at your paycheck. You got a raise. And I go, you know what? That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. And then when you said follow what works versus passion. So Larry, are you telling me that you're not passionate about entertainment? Like, what sort of relationship do you have with the industry then?
I'm good at it.
Okay, you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm good at it, but no, my passion is still cooking. That's the only thing that really excites me.
Like, that lights you up.
Yeah, when people look at the TV shows and stuff like that, I go, yeah, all right, it's, I get it. And they were good. Like Cock Soup went 26 years and stuff like that. But, when I can cook a Chinese meal as good as any Chinese person on the planet.
Super
and people are going, really? That's a lot of gratification within. And stuff. The TV thing, TV, film, live of it. It's not just TV. It's kind of everything these days. It's instinctive, and I think over the 50 years, you just develop a confidence. You kind of know in your gut like what's good or bad. You never know what's going to be a big hit, but you know what's not going to be. So you stay away from those things that really don't have a chance of making it.
How do you know when something has a chance of making it? Is it a gut feeling again, like we've been talking about, or feedback? Like, what is like an illustration?
It's certainly not feedback, because again, I think people, when they see stuff they've never seen before, are not very good at expressing it. You kind of sense it. There's this feeling that kind of happens. There's this environment that's created. Like you take the one that you're involved in Stall Talk. We very carefully casted that because we were looking for personalities that were going to be very different, but yet very together. And, while I think the four of you guys are very different in the way you live, especially Ivana.
Yeah.
But there's an underlying love there and stuff. And there's not that if I cut her throat, I'll get it, I'll be better. There's this learning kind of fitting into the puzzle kind of thing. And when you see that, you say, okay, this has a chance.
It's almost like chemistry and energy. And I've been feeling this recently, but just especially as women, I feel like looking at the Stall Talk cast in particular, we all just are rooting for each other and support one another. There's this essence of not having all the answers, but also looking to each other to learn, to grow, to stay curious. And I think capturing that on camera is so authentic and is exactly what our world needs right now.
And that's key part of it, is that it's a process that the audience can see developing over time. And there's that coming together and things that really give it that authenticity and that genuine feeling. And that's what audiences are looking for. As you move away from broadcasting to podcasting, you're really going from lowest common denominator to really super serving niches. It's, who wants this information? People could sniff out BS. So I don't care if it's learning how to knit and sew or, being a woman in the workplace. you can tell when things are not authentic. And when you finally see the authentic thing, you appreciate it more and you tend to be loyal to it. So even though the audience is smaller, the audience is more passionate and more likely to. You got to give people on every episode, there needs to be a takeaway.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to get that next morning and go, you know what? I spent an hour there and I only got one thing,
Yep.
but that one thing stuck with me.
Yep. And will hopefully change their life or empower them to take change. I agree.
It's empowered to take change.
I agree. Larry, I cannot believe we're almost at the end of today's episode. Literally felt like I was here for 5 minutes with you. So I want to welcome you to a section that I like to call syllabus steps. And this is really a time for us and my audience to understand, okay, what are really the main key takeaways that we've learned from Larry? And how can we start to actionize authenticity, integrity, and also, learning from you? Are there any specific resources, tools, daily non-negotiables that will help us show up in our lives to really grow and create success for ourselves and others? So, Larry, any books, resources, like any morning routines, anything that you want to share with us today that have like changed the game for you?
Well, I mean, number one, work ethic. I mean, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Doing my thing, and I go to sleep at like 1.
Yeah. 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Is that enough sleep?
Well, it's
it's good for me.
It works for me.
Yeah.
I think that thing. I read voraciously. I mean, in the days where magazines were things you actually touched, I probably read 50 magazines a month. Probably read 4 books a month. Now I read them all on my pad.
Yeah.
So I still read I read a lot, and all kinds of diverse things. I mean, I read like gun and ammo magazine. I've never shot a gun in my life, but I want to know about. I've just got this appetite for learning about stuff. When I get involved in a project, I kind of immerse myself, almost like a method actor. I actually wrote the business plan for the Hobby and Craft Network in the UK. And to do it, I had to learn how to crochet and needlepoint. And because I needed to understand the process of what it was that I was trying to capture on video. And the only way to do it is to do it. So I throw myself into like a lot of situations where I know nothing. And I just say, I've got the confidence that I'm smart enough. I'll figure it out. Like I can needlepoint little eyeglass cases and stuff like that. And I buy a cookbook every month. And I literally cook the book. I don't necessarily eat it, but I'll like cook everything because I want to learn how to do it.
You don't eat all of it?
No, but my daughter lives in the house that's.
I'm like, Larry, if you ever need someone to eat your food, I'm here.
Yeah. And again, that's cooking is kind of in my therapy. And no matter what you do, you've got to find that escape. For some people it's meditation, some people it's Pilates and stuff. For me, it's like when the day sucks is go in the kitchen and cook, and it's that process that just takes you away from whatever. It was funny because when I went to China, they would be like, let us show you how to use the chopsticks. And I go, no, let me show you how to use the chopsticks. And then they would try and explain dishes to me, but I would explain them to them. I ended up having a cooking show in
China?
Yeah, which was loosely titled The White Boy Cooks Chinese Food.
Were you the star?
Yeah, I was the cook. Yeah, I was
Larry, you have to send me this.
I think it might even be on YouTube. But yeah, so we did 4 episodes on Beijing TV.
White Boy
Cooks Chinese food. Yeah, if somebody here, you might find that offensive. In China, It was like, yeah, okay, I am the white boy.
That's classic. I have to say, what I just loved from your syllabus steps is this concept of confidence, right? And I think people can look at you or look at me and be like, how are they so confident? And for me, confidence is a muscle, right? You have to be willing to put yourself into the fire. You have to be willing to get outside of your comfort zone. And I love what you said about jumping into the deep end and just trying it. Not that you have to know exactly what you're doing, but when you learn that skill and you prove yourself wrong that you are capable, that is when you build the confidence muscle. To all of my women listening, that is a super powerful takeaway that I do want you to take from Larry Namer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also want to announce, not sure if this is happening 100% yet, but your cookbook.
Yeah, people have been after me to kind of write my book, but I wouldn't do it. I've always stayed away from it, going, you know what, I'm not ready to write a last chapter yet, so I'm not going to do it. But then somebody suggested to me that why don't you do your life as a cookbook and do the recipes that inspired you through the various stages of your life, and then put the anecdotes of funny stories that, you know, happened in between. And, you know, so yeah.
Larry, that's brilliant.
And for me, that's fun. And the process of writing this book, and I'm up to chapter 4 now, is it just makes you remember all this stuff that you never thought about, and stuff. And it's crazy, like digging up, like I remember in the cookbook is a salad that was was the salad that I ate the first time I ever had lunch with O.J. Simpson, at La Scala in Beverly Hills and stuff. But I remember exactly what I ate. It's funny because I remember exactly what I ate and exactly how to make it.
Isn't it so weird how we like remember certain meals like that? I mean, food is such a key aspect of life. And when we think about the emotions or the experiences or memories that are tied with that, it can bring up like a full experience. So Larry, I'm 100% behind this cookbook. I'm excited to see it. I'm going to hold you accountable.
It should be finished by the end of the year.
Okay. We'll look out for it. Last question. It's a fun little game if you're ready. Okay.
Go ahead.
It's a fill in the blank. So, regardless of blank, I am blank.
Regardless of what people's impression of what I am supposed to be, I'm still like a street kid from Coney Island.
Your younger self.
And it's interesting, all my friends are my friends from then. I mean, while I have a lot of acquaintances and obviously business and stuff like that, I'm still like a Brooklyn kid, and my friends are my friends from high school.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And you guys still stay in touch.
Yeah, we still stay in touch, and it's actually a very weird high school because it was a public school, from what we now know is a poor neighborhood. But interestingly enough, it still has more Nobel Prize winners have come from this high school than any other high school in America. And there's no real, yeah, it's
Maybe
really,
it's like an energetic thing. Like, you know, when they say like Santa Barbara, there's some magical energy there because of the coordinates in the ocean. Like maybe it's something crazy like that.
yeah, it's number 3 in the world for Nobel Prize winners and stuff.
Makes sense.
And I think it's number 5 or 6 for NBA players, which is really a contradiction from, you know, the schooling to the sports.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really nuts. But, you know, me and 2 of my friends that I grew up with, we ended up in Hollywood. One of them became the head of children's programming at Disney, and the other one became the head of music at Fox, and then me, you know, so. It's just weird, you know, to think of like 3 kids from Coney Island in 7th grade together, you know, ending up being out here and being successful, obviously.
I love how connected you are to your roots. That's everything. And Larry, when thinking about Stall Talk, what gets you the most excited about it?
Well, I think there's this dynamic among the 4 folks that are in it, that gives it incredible flexibility. I mean, like one of the things we're doing in one of the first shows is interviewing Cheyenne Hunt, who's this incredibly, you know, brilliant young woman who's trying to change, you know, the political landscape here. And, you know, just looking and saying, okay, it's going to be a fascinating interview by having the input of these 4 very, you know, very different people. So I think we've got the core of what's good there. We got to stick with it, not try and change it. I mean, Jenny Lee is Jenny Lee on one hand. I mean, people are real. She was on the biggest TV show in the world at one point.
It's crazy.
And then you have Cass, who I think comes from another planet. But you know, you and Ivana in between, who strangely are probably the most normal.
I don't know if I'm normal, but
in that crew, you're the normal one. Even Ivana is like more normal than the two extremes. But I think there's this great chemistry there, and there's great flexibility of what you could do, and who you could bring in as guests. I think we could do a lot of the unexpected.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about any topic, and I think bringing any woman or even man who is moving the needle forward and is making people think and is challenging the status quo, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think we've got the personalities are there.
Yeah.
I think while you're all different, I think there is this respect and love for each other, which comes across. You could tell, even though they may fight sometimes, they really do love each other and they've got each other's back. I think that, and then I think the format is interesting. There is, and when I first came up with the idea for Stall Talk, it was just this thing that fascinated me for years. Like you'd go out, a few couples, and one woman say, I got to go to the restroom, and they all get up and go. And, us guys are sitting there going, what the hell are they doing in there, for 15 minutes and stuff. But it's a metaphor for this camaraderie among women of all different ages and stuff, that somehow they manage to come together to this common place of womanhood. That us guys, we don't share it and we just don't get necessarily. But it's always fascinated me. And when I watch the dynamic of the four of you together, it helps me understand it more.
That's super cool. And even like thinking about the Infamous party we went to, I had a really beautiful moment with Cass where I just knew, I'm like, we got to take you to the bathroom. Like, what's going on, baby? Because I feel like I am kind of like her older sister in a way. And so I brought her into the bathroom and she's like, Sky, like, I'm just not feeling great. Like kind of, navigating still from a heartbreak. And I'm like, babe, I've got you. And we just had a moment of both of us getting emotional, sitting on like the bathroom sink. And I'm like, let's take a look at like perspective right now. I'm like, look where you are, my love. And she's like, the bathroom. And then that made her cry even more. And I'm like, no, you're at the Emmys pre-party, like perspective. But it was so cool because it was us having that moment. And then older women walked into the bathroom and they just had open arms for us. And I think capturing that moment in an environment in the studio with women of all generation and ages, like that is what people want to hear.
It is special, and it's surprising to people that it's actually being seen and being brought forward and open and stuff like that. And then to me, it's like one of those things that people go, really? You're going to do it? They think we're shooting in the bathroom. They don't realize that it's really just, a symbol. But it's like a show that people just never thought would happen. And it's a great way to explore the differences, things that happen in the world, or relationships or culture or stuff like that, but through the eyes of women of different generations and stuff. And it's fascinating.
Larry, I'm honored to be a part of it, and I'm so excited to share it with my audience. Thank you so much for coming onto the show regardless, and I cannot wait to share this with the world because we need to hear it.
Thank you,
Larry Namer.
Thank you.